custard. And so this is Swerve. That's that brown rice. So when I'm making this, I will use this pot right here. This is just like a 3-4 cup pot, right? Rice cooker. And what I will do is I will put butter, right? I will put the Swerve, whoops. It's trying to jump out at me. It wanted to get introduced first, and cinnamon. Yeah, we use the Walmart, and I do use salted butter. So if you don't really want that sort of salted caramel flavor in your custard, totally understand. To each his own. And that would be baked at 350 Fahrenheit for 35 minutes. But because I didn't have protein powder, yeah, I'm out. And I really have something to say about just benefits, positives and negatives, but we'll get into that next. With that binding quality of the whey protein, this ends up taking a few minutes longer than the 35 minutes, just to send a warning out. Now we got our, yeah, we turned the oven off yet. We ate one patty, almost, and I eat while I walk. But what I'll do is I put these frozen patties in, right? $27 in California for 32 patties, 75% lean, 25% fat. And I will put those in the oven at about 450 for about 35 minutes from the frozen state. And they end up turning out really well. I don't get too picky about the little tiny minuscule amount of sugar that's in this nature's seasoning. But oftentimes it will be a little too peppery for me, right? So I'll use some salt on top of that and maybe some garlic. Ooh, we got a little too clean on the cinnamon there. Some bubbles. Now, I'm doing this specific live, not public, but it's live. I want to choke to death there. And you go through an entire gallon of water a day, sometimes more. I'm a big tea drinker, so I'll be sipping on tea. This is only like $2 or $3 at Walmart. There's 100 of these things. I mean, you can see how fast I go through it. And then I'm also a big coffee drinker, and this is some of the best tasting instant coffee you can get, bar none. It really is good. We've got our 0-calorie monk fruit. This is erythritol. So if you see that Splenda logo and you haven't looked into it with the monk fruit, look on the back. It's erythritol. All right, and it's that 0-calorie. Now you can really mess your stomach up by, particularly with that Swerve brown sugar. Man, you can jack your stomach up on this stuff. So this is a combination of allulose, monk fruit, and erythritol. So I wanted to say that I tested it. That I kept pushing it and going, man, am I gonna lose more weight? Like, it seems like I haven't lost any weight in the last 4 or 5 months. When I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, damn, I weighed 170 something pounds. And then I added it up, like back in October. And I'm like, wait, I weigh about 158 pounds. So when I had gotten down to that really base area where I thought I could lose no more, I would go into these morning fasts, right? Which I'm getting back on. But like I was explaining in the last video, it's all about creating a calorie surplus, and then you'll feel that wellspring, that vitality. And when you have that extra energy, that's when you train, not when you're all starved down. And I also said that if you had to choose between your resistance training and your conditioning, you're always going to choose the conditioning. You want to know why? Unless you really are able to do like supersets and train all day where you are effectively getting conditioning, right? But if you're just talking about being able to work out for 20 or 30 minutes of resistance training 3 to 5 times a week, you're not getting enough resistance training, or you're not getting enough conditioning, right? So what's going to end up happening is you're going to lose your conditioning over time, right? You're going to lose a lot of that left ventricle hypertrophy. Now that can be skewed. It's not for everybody, especially if we're talking about more mesomorphs. We're talking about people who have a history with higher intensity conditioning. When I would wear my heart rate monitor, and I would, for recovery purposes, just in one set on an incline bench press, from having a resting pulse of 60 or below, sometimes far below that, my heart rate would go up to 210 and up. So that's the kind of intensity that I would put into it. And the heavier you go, the more of your entire body you're using, right? So that's where I would break away from that. But I would still add in, if you're a big gym rat, I would add in a little bit of maybe incline treadmill. That's what I would do in the past. So, it didn't cost me muscle. And it is tough to gain that muscle mass, but for your everyday warrior, and you're all warriors out there, right? Choose the conditioning first. Keep your conditioning levels high, keep your conditioning levels up. So I'm going to get back to my prior train of thought and notice how I am exercising and closing out on my 1,300th mile since I've been coming to you. I've lost 80 pounds. Actually, it's going on more than 80 pounds. It's going on 81 pounds. And the whole point to this video has to do with one specific thing. And that is, once I got down to those ultra low body weight levels, thinking, could I sustain this? I didn't go back to the carbohydrates. I upped my calories. Did I gain any weight ever doing carnivore? I'm talking about fat weight. No, I didn't. Did I get leaner? Yes. So what I was effectively doing, what I am doing right now, is when I look at how many calories I'm burning, I see that exact calorie measurement show up in my weekly averages of how much fat I lose. Right now, it might be half a pound to a pound per week. I know that I'm not going to lose at all until I go through my training, my conditioning, my morning conditioning in a fasted state. I would have days where I would take in 4,000 calories a day. Yesterday, I probably came close to that. Today, I've had 7 eggs, a 300 plus calorie hamburger patty. Those are very high fat. And then I've got this custard, beautiful custard waiting for me. And and then 4 ounces of cheese on top of that, about 3 ounces of cheese, which is very high calorie, right? So you're probably looking at about 3,600 calories. Did I gain a pound yesterday? No, every time I eat excessive amounts of food and even recreationally eat on carnivore, as long as I'm staying on carnivore, all eating more does is increase my metabolic state. Now you see that I proved by all my prior videos that my metabolism was broken, that I am not some super freak that has an ultra fast metabolism. No, and that's a tough thing to come to terms with when you just see all that fat on you and you go, wait a minute, I'm older now. I've got a lot of these metabolic precursors for metabolic syndrome. I'm even feeling it. I'm feeling some pre-diabetes and things like that. I better do something. And that's where I was last year, this time last year. Now, I'm not gonna say I'm shredded yet, but I am ripped. I am extremely lean. And I tell you, the carnivore has been an amazing diet. I will still be doing all whey protein fasts because that's what I started doing 20 years ago. That's what I've been doing for 20 years, showing people intermittent fasting techniques for 20 years, way before it was even a thing. I was an influencer before the colloquial term even existed. I was doing things that seemed really radical and I was getting amazing results with clients. I was always, throughout my entire personal training career, dating all the way back to 2001. And actually I was a personal trainer back in the early 90s as well, but I wasn't certified, but I did have a job. I was working in a gym. So you're talking about like a 35-year span, and 25 of those years, 23, 24, going on 25 of those years, I have been certified. I have held certifications. My first one was with AFA, and then ACE, NESTA, the NSCA, NASM. There's so many others. Pilates coach, AFPA, AFTA, a myriad of, I had like 20, close to 25 certifications at a time. 3 through the Equinox Fitness Institute at that time when they did all their educations and gave certifications out. And a hell of a lot of like specialty certifications, from senior fitness training to nutrition and wellness counselor. It's been years and years. Kettlebell certification, I might have mentioned that already. TRX. So, and I learned from the best. So it's been a long road of not only training myself, but training other people, and being an older guy at this time and seeing how important it is to not only get your conditioning up, but to go into this constant moving state. This is what's being taken away from us folks, is the ability to continuously keep moving. Our attention spans are shit. They really are, let's be honest. You know, with the cell phones and the distractions galore. And our bodies want to sit. Our bodies are stressed out. Our bodies in a physical sort of neurolinguistic programming state are in this recoiled position, right? We're getting all these symbols and signs all over the place. Cortisol levels rise. And by the way, exercise is going to raise cortisol levels. It's how you deal with it, right? So you have to induce the pain. You have to be the arbitrator of your pain, right? And so get yourself walking. If you can't walk for some reason, like literally you're not able to step, get into a pool safely, a lot of supervision, and try to move for long periods of time, or get on to an upper body ergometry meter, you know, where you're doing that spin. 24-hour fitnesses, look it up. You know, you might have to get something, but either way, this continuous training is where it's at. You have to condition yourself for more. You have to condition yourself to do more, and it will create better opportunities for you all around. So in my last live, I talked about creating a calorie surplus. And once you do that, it may take a week or two because you might be more deficient than you think. And I just had, in between the last live that I did and this one, I had an extra vitamin because I look at the back of the vitamin bottle and I want to be sure that I'm getting an adequate amount of certain nutrients. Well, all nutrients, but certain ones. And believe it or not, it was vitamin C that I was falling back on. That was something that I used to religiously take in. But again, that's for amino acid synergistic responses, right? Very important. to unlock the power of those amino acids, to take in your collagen at a certain time of the day, and then have a transition or a switch over to more of an anabolic state where you're taking your whey protein. So I had times where I would do nothing but fast on whey protein and water, and obviously taking in supplements with that. So there was a real orthomolecular spin to this fasting, right? And I would do something where I thought to myself that I was inspired by the Unlikely Bodybuilder by Samuel Fussell and a couple other notable books way back in the day. And I started to develop this concept, this idea that if I were sick and I were put on an amino acid drip system, and I remember reading about some bodybuilders way back in the day, back in the 80s, Muscle and Fitness, that were sick, had a majority of their stomach lining removed because of cancer and some other things, that they were literally put on this amino acid drip 24 hours a day, and they actually were able to build muscle. I mean, these guys obviously were put on other things too, but the whole point is that they were meeting their calorie needs, but they're also staying in a positive muscle nitrogen state. And so that had got me thinking, let's try doing this every hour, taking in small amounts of protein, of whey protein, every hour, on the hour, continuously. And what that ended up doing is I got completely shredded. So what I've been waiting for to get rid of that last little fat on the lower abdominals around my entire physique, and there's not much of it now. To finally get rid of that last little bit of fat, I mean, your body is going to react. Your body knows it when you go under 7%, but definitely when you hit under 5% body fat. It's not hanging on to anything. So what gives it cause is by taking in that small amount. I'm telling you a trade secret here that people don't seem to understand. They don't seem to get to know, and it was a staple of mine, and why I myself and my clients walked around extremely lean all the time. And then once you lose that fat, once you can lose the fat, you go back on the carnivore, and your metabolism is just going to go faster. You're not going to gain the fat back. So people will look at you, just like we look at people now. They will look at you eating that huge steak. They will look at you eating those 5 hamburger patties. They will look at you and they will see the striations in your body, in your abdominals, all those veins, and they're going to wonder, this person's a genetic freak. But this is the secret. And the thing is, once you can get rid of that fat, and then you go back to doing the carnivore, and you don't blow it, you stay devout in the religiosity of that approach toward carnivore, and you use, and I'm not giving you this advice because this is very extreme, but this is what I'm going to be going into. And your behavior, you're not going to be in a very good mood, right? Because it requires, once you're in gluconeogenesis, you have to keep moving. You have to, there's a lot of things like the fight or flight response is triggered, your brain histamine levels rise, your sleep is going to be shit. But in 1 week of doing that, you are going to see an amazing result. But you are putting yourself into a very extreme process that isn't necessarily healthy, and your body wants to hang on to some fat. So keep that in mind, that this is something that will create this cathartic process, something extreme. Metanoia is what I like to call it. But to regulate back out your endocrine system, you're going to need to up those calories back up, and you'll probably end up having to eat even more calories than you did in the past, because now you have this thermic effect from all the foods you eat, because your body is just, it's freaking out. It's going, I'm not used to this. It takes, like, I used to stay down at these really low levels of body fat, and it takes several months for your body to acclimate and go, okay, this is who we are and what we are now, the type of animal that we are. And you will get to a point where you can be that ripped, that shredded, and that fit. And you feel calm and relaxed. But understand that that your body works in phases, it works in cycles. And that just like the capillary bed density that you have to establish with new muscle growth, we're not talking about hyperplasia, we're just talking about when you put on lean muscle mass, you have to supply blood. There has to be a blood supply. And what is that? It's about 26 weeks. So what I would estimate is that if you can maintain this lower body fat bracket for about 6 months healthfully, you can own that if you don't do anything contrary that's going to take you outside of that set point. I'm not going to say you can make it your new set point, but I'm not saying that you can't. I've been there before, I've done it, and it worked. Rogue Beast Warrior out.